Disney and Pixar's Elemental hits theaters this weekend, but does it continue the wave of successful animated feature films, or does the spark fail to catch fire? What's up, guys? Welcome back to the MontyVerse. We just saw Disney and Pixar's Elemental, and we have some thoughts about it. Joining me as always is Nicki. What's up, Nicki?
Hi, I'm super excited to talk about this. This has easily been one of my most anticipated movies this year, but largely because it has the Pixar branding with it. But we just came out of the theater for it.
Nicki, do you want to give your first initial out-of-theater thoughts?
I'd be happy to. So for me, going into this, I knew it was going to be kind of a heavy concept. I remember when they first released concept art for it of the main characters, Ember and Wade, and I thought it was pretty interesting. And I think for the most part, I find this to be a mostly solid film. I think the character designs are really cool. I think the acting performances are really great overall. I think where it kind of drops the ball a bit is a bit of the story, where I appreciate what they're doing with kind of the metaphor and the type of story they're trying to tell with Ember and her family. I think there are times where it doesn't all quite mesh as well as I wanted to, and a lot of the humor also doesn't land for me personally, and I felt a little bit underwhelmed.
Yeah, I mean, underwhelmed is a really good word to describe how I felt about the film. I left feeling very conflicted. I think this film had ambition in the beginning, but somewhere along the line, it kind of lost its point of view. There's a lot of things that I think would make a very interesting movie, and I think that there was some themes that this movie wanted to tackle that I think could have been handled way better than we got in this movie. It felt very safe and almost dumbed down in a way at times. Like, it felt like the themes they were trying to tackle were definitely played down very aggressively when instead of being tackled the way that Pixar normally does, which I found a little strange. The animation is gorgeous. It's Pixar, so they have a quality, they have a standard that we're used to seeing on film, and it's definitely there. There are some really gorgeous shots in here, and I think the high concept of, you know, there being a city with the 4 different elements. I think they utilize that in some really cool ways in this film. Like you said, the voice acting is really, really strong. Strong performances from Leah Lewis, and a name that we had to quadruple check that we're pronouncing it right, Mamoudou Athie. They were both really great, and I think that the scenes with them and that love story were some of my favorite scenes in the movie. Absolutely.
I think they had amazing chemistry, and I think their vocal performances were outstanding in this. And they really, I do enjoy the 2 characters themselves, kind of in a vacuum, if that makes sense, and together, I should say.
Yeah, but you know what? Let's transition that into the plot of the film. Nicki, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so what the film does is they kind of play it pretty straight in that the whole film is kind of an allegory for an immigrant family, which is Ember's in this case, who go to Element City to start a new life. Her parents open a store, and it's her father's passion, and she's expected to take over that store at some point. And they don't have the best relationship with water people, which is a little bit obvious from the get-go. They wouldn't be compatible in that regard.
Yeah. I think, I mean, to elaborate on that, I think that that's what this movie ends up being, but I think what it wants to be is an allegory for interracial relationships and the treatment of immigrants in new countries, and to have it, but it tackles those really complex and interesting themes, but it doesn't really do much with them.
I think part of the issue with it is, in some ways, they're very on the nose about it. Because, and I think a lot of this is drawn from, I read on director Peter Sohn's experiences, is that her family is definitely, like I said, an allegory for, I believe, an Asian family, and the racism and the discrimination they face, which is incredibly realistic. In some ways, they're very on the nose about it. In other ways, they play a little bit looser and try to connect it to them literally being personification of fire, and how they can touch like a wood person and they burst into flames. So I think they kind of play fast and loose with that at times.
Yeah, I mean, the plot's pretty... besides that, the plot's pretty simple. It's essentially a Romeo and Juliet type love story. These two people fall... It's essentially we follow these two characters as they fall in love, but their two different lives complicate that, especially the complexities of Ember's family history and the obligation she feels to her family and the sacrifices they made for her. And like I said, there are some really cool things, and this was definitely a different movie than I expected us to see. I expected us to see more of a traditional romance film, but that those themes of immigration and the immigrant lifestyle had me very excited to watch this film, because they hit a very personal spot for me. I am a descendant of immigrants. I'm a second generation Italian American immigrants. Both of my grandfathers came here from Italy. They immigrated here, and they shared plenty of stories about growing up and struggling and facing discrimination during that time. They were treated very poorly as they immigrated into America, and to have kind of like allegories for that, where you have a scene where they kind of are given new names when they enter Element City, and things like that are very well done. And then a lot of the times things just feel so generic that it's kind of hard to tell where the voice was coming from.
I think part of it is, I think Ember and Wade are both really fun characters. I think that a lot of other aspects, and honestly just the characters in this film, are very underdeveloped as characters. Because first of all, we basically see nothing of the wind and the earth people. That's almost not explored at all. And the couple of characters we do get who represent those areas are incredibly one-dimensional. And that, I think, was just kind of a missed opportunity.
Yeah, it's so weird for a movie that focuses so heavy in the first 10 to 15 minutes on the world it's built and showing all the details and the cool like mechanisms and design of it. There wasn't really much thought put into it outside, or shown to us anyway, outside of that.
Yeah.
Another problem this film has in terms of plot is it kind of doesn't know what it wants to be at times.
Yeah, it's a little bit all over the place between the love story, Ember struggling with meeting her family's expectations, and then there's this ongoing conflict related to her father's store and her like trying to save it. That's in a way like, and all this is happening at the same time, but they don't feel as connected as I would have thought they would be.
It feels like they're trying to tackle so many different aspects of Ember's life that they don't do any of the plots justice, really, because they're spending so much time going off in all these directions and everything becomes overly simplified.
And I think the other issue that you and I talked about was the fact that there's also like little things and details that seemingly come out of nowhere.
Yes.
Like, for example, there's a scene a little bit like at the midway point, I would say, during the film, where there's a talent that Ember has that kind of comes to light. And it didn't really occur to us that this was something that was considered like either something she was either interested in or like she was spectacular at in any way. And it's like, that's cool. I just wish we had something beforehand.
Let's get into the cons, because
I thought we were already
we're already into it, but like we didn't even know that made her like that differentiated her from any other fire person, because nothing was ever really like we assumed that everyone could just do that because there were no rules like laid out at all.
Yeah, that's a big thing, is a little things that just we didn't entirely understand. Like, it's in the trailers, like she like bumps into an earth person and like they lose all their leaves or something. It's never totally clear like how much control they have over that.
There's so many inconsistencies in the world that really took me out of the movie, and it actually affected my ability to enjoy the movie because I think they try. My biggest problem is they do so many things in the beginning of the film that feel like they were sitting down overthinking it, like, oh man, that would look so cool. But then as the movie goes on, you're sitting there going, well, now this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a lot of inconsistencies. Like I said, things just seemed like they were done halfway, and they were kind of just like, yeah, let's do that. It feels rushed. It feels incomplete. It feels sloppy. And that's really unexpected. Like I did not expect that coming out of a Pixar film to feel this way.
I think I enjoyed it a little bit more than you, because I could definitely feel what they were trying to do, and there were some moments where I did feel a little bit invested in the characters. I think, like you said, the biggest thing I think is kind of the follow through, where on the one hand they're trying to tell this hyper realistic and relatable story that a lot of people can relate to, coming from immigrant families and just kind of the loyalty they feel to their families in general and carrying on their legacies. And they have this fantastical concept at the same time, which is really cool in theory. And I think you actually said it really well. You said coming out, like, it would have maybe behooved the film to have an extra half hour to either expand upon it, or like I said, this also could have been like a really cute short about a fire and a water person.
Yeah, it needed to be more or less. It felt incomplete the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
It needed to be just a simple love story with like, because again, it's so weird that the short that they had before this, which was Carl's first date or Carl's date, was so perfect in its execution.
Yeah.
The writing, the acting, the length of it, the story it's trying to tell, the themes it's hitting. I don't want to spoil anything for it because it's just it felt good.
And guess what? It made us emotional by the end.
We were very emotional, and then to see like a good Pixar movie, like to be reminded of like peak Pixar, and then watch this, it kind of ruined this because the whole time I was thinking, why aren't they at, like, what happened to them that they're not reaching this caliber anymore?
Yeah, and again, I think I appreciate the ambition and some of the creativity and the relatability, because I do think that's what Pixar has kind of done well in the past is they take kind of like I don't want to say highbrow, but kind of like a fantastical concept and then still make it uber relatable at the same time. And I think this one, maybe it was too ambitious in both directions.
Yeah, I think the concept was high concept. Mm-hmm. I think they spent a lot of time developing the animation, which again is gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
The visuals, I think they invested a lot of time and effort into that when they should have been investing time and effort into the story and the characters, because that's where the movie really falls apart. I do want to talk about the things we like.
Yeah.
Because like we said, I think the voice performances all around were very well done.
Yes, I 100% agree. I was gonna say, because for as little as they're in the movie, Wendy McLendon-Covey plays pretty much the main air person that we meet, Gail, who's Wade's boss, and she's very funny in this role that she plays. Catherine O'Hara was a very fun surprise for me.
She was great. She was awesome.
As Wade's mother. I'm not sure where the joke comes in entirely, but like for their whole family, they're very big criers and very emotional, and they both play it very well.
They're your stereotypical like white American family. But yeah, so that's I think the angle, like cultural perspectives, different cultural perspectives. But yeah, I think all the vocal performances were great. I have to give a shout out again to the two leads, because some of my favorite moments of the film, if not all of my favorite moments of the film, are the moments where they really have these emotional scenes together. Leah Lewis, for example, gives this really great monologue about how she grew up and how her parents came to this country to build a better life for themselves, and they sacrificed all of their time and effort into building something for themselves and their daughter, to build her a future, and she feels obligated to return that sacrifice. How can you look at your parents who sacrificed everything for you and tell them that you don't want to continue their legacy? Like that immigrant child, or the descendant of immigrant mentality of sacrifice, and that need that you feel like you have to sacrifice your life for your parents because they sacrificed their life for you. And I thought that was really compelling, and she did such a good job in that scene. And I feel like I really wanted to explore that more, but again, this movie kind of goes in a couple of different directions to the point where we never really, like, we get a resolution to that, but that's the stuff I wanted. I wanted more of those like think pieces. Like if you're really gonna tackle this subject matter, tackle it 100%.
Yeah. I'm honestly with you on all of those points, because I don't even necessarily mind that it's a bit of, I don't want to say it's overly predictable, because I think that a lot of it is very relatable, and that's just kind of the truth for people who have that experience. I think it was just that there wasn't much in this film that like truly elevated that kind of a story, if that makes sense. Yeah.
But besides the performances, I will say the animation was, like we said, the animation's gorgeous. But this is Pixar. You kind of expect that from them. So to say they hit a home run for the majority of this film is par for the course when it comes to Pixar animation. I think the CGI fire looked really good.
Yes, and what's so crazy is I remember, like I said, the concept of art coming out when it was simply in 2D, and I thought even that looked gorgeous and fantastic. But the way they keep Ember and all of the fire people just like consistent, and like kind of the burning sensation they animate, it's honestly very gorgeous, and I appreciate like the creativity they did with that and just kind of conceptualizing fire people.
Yes. So like, again, huge plus for us. Nicki, any final thoughts on Elemental?
I'm like you. I'm kind of conflicted because there were parts of it that I did enjoy. I think overall, I would say that it was solid in a lot of aspects. I do have a lot of cons for it. It's not enough to where I would say this is anywhere near bottom Pixar or anything. I would say in a lot of ways, I think parts of the story are just kind of middling that have great animation and performances, but not enough that I think it's in the top echelon.
Well said. Nicki, out of 5 water droplets, what do you rate Disney and Pixar's Elemental?
Are they ones that we have to cry?
No, they're just here. They will just pop up. Once you say it, they will just pop up.
Okay, cool. Like I said, I think overall this is a pretty solid effort, if not necessarily my favorite. So I'm gonna give this a tempered 3 out of 5 water droplets.
That's fair. That's fair. For me, the thing I love most about Pixar is the way that they take these complex adult themes and they tell a story that is fulfilling for both children and adults. I did not feel that seeing this movie. For a movie that feels like it was modeled after parts of my life, that there were elements that hit me personally and directly that I had trouble connecting to emotionally because the writing was so bad at times. It's just not up to par with what I expect a Pixar film to be in terms of story. That, amongst the many other inconsistencies throughout the film, has me giving this a 2 out of 5 fireballs for Disney and Pixar's Elemental.
Whoa, what a swerve.
Whoa, interesting. And I think that's gonna do it for us for this review. If you like this review and you want to see more of us reviewing things, give the video a huge thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell to stay up to date on all of our latest content, and until next time, guys, stay versed.